All right, welcome everybody. This is a What's Up for You chat, and it is October 10th, 2023. And I don't know if it's just in the air or maybe we've got, this by donation session coming up right after this. But definitely, I would say the energy is in the air of literally dropping an old pattern. Just gone, dropping it. What I keep seeing over the last week or so is whereas things used to kind of onion peel off, you might say, that's not where we are right now. We're in dropping whole structures. And so as you're asking your questions today, I think it's a really good idea to, you've sent whatever question in that you have, but also let's also be open to the idea that possibly whatever that question, concern, whatever it is that was presented does no longer has to be a concern, right? And our mental mind goes, yeah, but how? How does it no longer, how is it no longer a concern? And the only thing I can say right now, anyway, and we'll see what comes up in these questions, is that let's put that parameter around things. What if, let's put that question around things. What if whatever the perceived issue is, whether it's, for you, for your children, for humanity, whatever it is, what if that does not have to be a problem or does not have to be perceived as a problem? There's something that's just, it's almost feels like it's shaking out in the field, almost like it's holding on for dear life, like little fingers gripped onto something. And let's just see where these questions take us today and where we can move. But let's also consider that some of these questions that we have, we're asking these questions because we want them to drop away, because we do not want them to be an issue anymore. And from the inside out, what if they just aren't an issue anymore? Yeah, just putting that question around it. Yeah. Okay. So Sharon, do you have something for me?
I do.
Okay.
My son smiles very less in the past few months. There is a medical component to the pain and stress. We are working on his healing, but at home, we provide a peaceful and harmonious environment and be in the moment with him. The joy is still missing in him. Any wisdom to reclaim his joy and our joy?
Again, the responses to these questions come in different ways at different times based on the energetic climate and what's available within that climate. So we can ask the same question, 5 months in a row, and it's going to be a little different answer each time, not just because I'm flaky like that, which I can be sometimes, but there's also just the energetic climate of what's available. And so in this case, based on what we just said, prior to this question being asked, let's all tap into our joy here for a moment, whatever that means to you. It's like if I were just to ask all of us to find our joy right here, right now, with nothing has changed, nothing is different than it was 2 minutes ago when we started this questioning, but where does joy already exist within us? Where does joy already exist within your son? It must have, because the comment is the joy is gone. So hold on a second. So where is the joy within each and every one of us? And as we put our attention point there, and we find that even if it's a little bit of just a maybe an energetic signature and nothing more. Maybe it's just a wishful thought, or maybe it's an imagination. But as we turn our energy right back to that joy, we kind of create this template, or no, we reignite a template that already exists. And then we naturally and organically invite our children, invite the children, maybe even invite humanity back to a little joy. Right? Right there. Yeah. And so again, this just the way this energetic template is set up in the bigger picture right now. It sounds very rudimentary, but we want to pay attention to what we want instead of what we don't want. Yep, we want to feel into, because the power of our ability to be the creators, or to see ourselves as the creators that we actually are, that's right here, right now. And so we're seeing a discord so that we can choose balance, right? We're seeing unhappy or a lack of joy so that we can choose to add joy. Yep. And even as I say that, it's like not just your child, but all the kids are, choice points are amazingly powerful. And sometimes we have to suffer a bit before we get to a very clear one. Yep. I think that's human nature. I know it's my nature. So, yeah. So I hope that makes sense. The joy is still there in him. He knows joy. He came to bring joy. The joy is still in you. And it's almost like that choice, especially when you see your child lacking joy, we can get into a very clear focus of what we're choosing. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the moment you zero in on that, it starts spiraling out. The energetics of joy start spiraling out and around you. Yeah, and thus him. So I hope that's helpful.
Actually, this is a thank you. Last Zoom session, you told us to ask our autistic children to communicate through dreams. Same night, I asked my son, 15, that night I had a very clear dream where I knew it was a message for him. He showed me what he has been experiencing lately. The day after, he came straight to me and gave me a long and warm hug. He was in a very good mood, and after that, he has been doing a lot better. I want to thank you, Suzy. I am truly amazed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It does my heart good. Yeah. It's the kids are more than capable of, they're communicating all day, every day. It's just that their communication fields are a little bit different than ours. So the moment that we ask, it's given. The moment that we ask for that information, one way or another, it's going to show up. And what I love is, in this scenario too, is you only have to have this experience once, right? And I guarantee you will be asking your child over and over again to give you more information. And he'll give you that information, in whatever way he possibly can, because the minute these kids know that we're interested in hearing from them in whatever way we can hear from them, they open us up big time. We just have to be willing to hear. So I'm so excited for you. Thank you. It's the journey begins. It's going to be a blast. Yeah. All right.
Next question. For the past 2 months, my son developed an obsessive habit of poking his face skin to an extent it is wounded severely. We are trying to help him in every way. Do you sense anything in the spiritual angle that we should work on to eliminate this habit?
I'm trying to get a handle on hold on a second. This is what I hear. You know, poked and prodded, poked and prodded. You know, poked to do something, poked to move in a particular direction, poked, and again, no blame, no shame here anywhere. Poked and prodded by humanity's poked and prodded by humanity's intent for what quote unquote should be, right? And he's saying there are no shoulds, there are no woulds, there are no coulds. We can drop all the shoulds. We don't have to poke and prod. We don't have to poke and prod ourselves into a certain don't have to poke and prod ourselves into a certain way of being or a certain position or a certain reality. It's like nothing's broken, so there's nothing to poke and prod. And I would literally say to him, you know, I bet there are days when you just feel poked and prodded. I would use those words because they seem to be supercharged with all kinds of information that will more fully hit the mark than what I'm even getting to right here, right now. So I would just say, and it's not about you or other people in the household poking and prodding him. It's more about, as human beings, we poke and prod ourselves into realities that are not who we are. They may be who somebody else thinks we should be. And so if that is resonating for you at all too, I think it's always good to look and say, okay, are there any ways in which I'm poking and prodding myself? You know, I'm poking and prodding myself, you know, into what I think should happen instead of whatever, joy, like we were just talking about. So I would say those words to him. It must feel like you're being poked and prodded by all kinds of things, all kinds of energies all the time. And, you know, and I would just say, it's like, it's hard. It's hard to be human. And it's hard to be human when you're as sensitive as, you know, we all are, the kids are. And just that little bit of understanding, I think in this case, is really going to go a long way. It's really going to go a long way. So again, there are just chunks of information that are trying to drop off, chunks of old behaviors, you might say, that are just trying to go by the wayside. And so we just want to have a little bit of understanding. And in this case, it looks pretty general understanding. Yeah. Just seeing if there's anything else that he wants to share. He's pairing this with what we were just talking about regarding joy. I think we've all been poked and prodded out of our own joy. And he's just saying if there's no woulds, shoulds, or coulds, can we just return to it? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Hope that's helpful.
My 18-month-old son is starting to have tantrums when he doesn't get his way. What is the best way to help him through this?
Well, he's right on track. So we'll say that first. 18 months, maybe a little precocious even. So let me see what he wants to. So this is more early childhood development than it is anything. And he'll have a few other things to add to this too. children are designed to push the boundaries. They're designed to push into and see where, in order, almost the way he's showing it to me, it's like in order to find out what is that they are safe, that they are contained, that they are supported, right? Just about every kid on this planet, and if we look back at our own childhoods, we could probably see this in ourselves as well, will push a boundary, right? They'll push a boundary, and they're not pushing a boundary for any other reason other than to see what the response is around that particular boundary. When the response around that particular boundary is clear and coherent and direct, and that feels safe, when that same boundary is hit, and it's almost like if we back up from creating that safe space, then over time the kids learn that they're in charge of those boundaries instead of the adults around them being in charge of those boundaries. And quite honestly, for a little one, that can be pretty darn scary, for an 18-month-old or for a 2-year-old, and this is I'm glad we're having this conversation now, but because to create this safe space, you might say, when there's a tantrum or when there's a whatever, to create that bit of a container now is really amazing, because when we don't create it now, what ends up happening is that same child feel dysregulated because there's no space within which to regulate. And so we want to find that regulation now, and we want to return to that regulation over and over and over again, so that as they mature, they learn to do that for themselves, right? So an 18-month-old, the parent is doing that in many ways, or setting the stage, the template for that. But as that child grows and matures, they will have that template, so they'll go back to using that. So a little bit more refinement here as far as this question is concerned. When you have an 18-month-old that is having a temper tantrum or throwing a fit because he doesn't get what he wants, again, the very first thing we can say is it's okay to not get what we want. Regardless of whether you think that 18-month-old, I mean, how many of us have spent our whole lives, trying to quote unquote get what we want, only to be frustrated and irritated and throw a tantrum because we don't. So it's not about getting what we want. And that's a really good lesson to learn at 18 months. It's not about getting what we want. It's about being able to meet what arises, meet those desires, to be able to support ourselves through that time. And so number one, it's okay to not get what you want. Number two, you're having a tantrum. This is the way we're going to soothe that, right? This is the way we're going to soothe that. For an 18-month-old, handing them something to hug, putting them in a safe space, sometimes just walking away from the tantrum so that there's no energy being added to the tantrum. All of those things can diffuse some of that energy and put the child back in control of that energy, right? You're simply showing them how to regulate themselves, basically, right? And so if we don't think about it from the standpoint of, oh my gosh, he's freaking out and he's not getting what he wants, how do I help him get what he wants? The fact is he may not get what he wants many times, or not what his mental mind thinks he wants. Many times he won't get that in his life, and that's okay. And nobody teaches us these things. And therefore, as adults, we go through thinking that there's something wrong with us if we didn't get what we wanted. It never was about that. It was really about being able to support ourselves, soothe ourselves, nurture ourselves, love ourselves. So those are the kind of skill sets you're giving him. Yep. So again, a couple different, you're teaching him how to regulate himself. A tantrum is a teaching moment. Yeah, handing him a toy, handing him a blanket, handing him something, and then stepping back, letting him find his way through that. And again, if most parents, nobody likes to see their kid suffer. Nobody likes to see their kid distressed. And at the same time, if a child learns from 18 months how to handle that distress, that child is light years ahead of most adult human beings on this planet right now. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, this question is, wondering how come we are doing this transition while in this body? Owie.
Howie is right. Well, I mean, and again, yes, Owie is right. And we can keep it really simple. We're doing this transition in this body at this time because we are. I mean, we can just keep it that simple. If we're doing this transition in this body at this time, simply because we are, simply because this is where we are right here, right now, in this moment. And if we allow it to just be that, then we can love ourselves, we can nurture ourselves, we can give ourselves a little bit of compassion. We can hold ourselves in this place of not understanding, right? Because the fact is that what's going on is so much bigger. What's going on in any life, in any moment, at any time in history is so much bigger than any of us might perceive in that moment. And I can absolutely say with whatever sight I have in the moment that I've never seen as much going on, in my 62 years, as I do right now. And I can also say that as much as I would like to know the details of all of that, I think the details of all of that are so vast that the best we can really do is be aware of what we can be aware of, and the part that we can't be aware of, love and nurture ourselves through. Yeah, be kind to ourselves. Little love goes a long way, folks. And when it starts with us, oh my God, it's like, talk about setting a new template for humanity to step into. I mean, what better one to do than that? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know why either, but I agree with the ouch for sure.
All right. I have been diagnosed with Pinguecula in both eyes. It's basically a callus on the white of the eyes. What can I do to help dissipate this?
Hold on just a second here. The way I'm seeing this, callus, as you describe it, is it's like a structure. And whereas when you said callus on the eye, my first thought was, something that was rounded. But when I look at it energetically, it almost looks like a structure, kind of like a scaffolding. I don't think this is from here. I think you're processing or clearing something from another incarnation or another lifetime, because the scaffolding looks Yeah, it kind of has like sharp edges and points and is not smooth, you might say. So let's dismantle some of this scaffolding. Um, and the way I hear it is whatever you brought in from this other lifetime. I mean, there's so much that can be cleared and transmuted, transformed right here, right now, because of the energetics that are available now. And that's one of the good things about this time, or lots of good things about this time, but that's one of them. So much can drop from other realities. This looks like a structure that was put in place that had, at a time where you were imprinted with a very rigid perspective of what you were allowed to see, what you're not allowed to see. What, when you see something, um, what that seeing of it means, or what you make it mean because you see it. All of this, and again, this looks really old to me. I don't know when if this came about more recently or has been growing over time, but it does look like it's really old. So let's just clear away that scaffolding, and any ways in which that energy of this is what I'm seeing. These are what I'm hearing. So just take this for what it's worth. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing means. And I've made it mean that, and therefore it's going to be that. It's like you're, at the same time you had this imprint in whatever that lifetime was, you also had, I'll say a powerful creator energy about you too. And I think in that experience, you kind of got a little side swiped. It's almost like something came in, and the power that you are, right? The power that you have to, we can see something and we can make it mean all kinds of things. In that lifetime, you saw things and you were almost imprinted, or I'll say coerced into having that mean something specific because of that creator energy. And once you made it mean that specifically, it kind of froze in place. And that's what it became, because the creator energy within you was and is strong. And so again, we're clearing all this scaffolding off. And I would also, moving forward, just consider that what you see, you can alter, right? If you can see it, you can change it. So it doesn't have to be carved in stone. Whatever the perception whatever the perception is of this that you see, it does not have to stay that. And again, going back to joy, does what you're seeing bring you joy? Does it lighten things up, or does it kind of create this sense of like a rigidity? And if any of it's that, again, it's literally just a pivot. It's just a pivot. So even when I say just a pivot, all that scaffolding, all that, I'm going to say hardness, it's like almost like a scab, or a crusted over. Yeah. It's like all that becomes like soft. It becomes like powdery looking, even when we say, it's like, it's a choice. Yeah. At this stage, it wasn't a choice back then. It was a very heavy imprint, but you're just clearing that imprint now. Yeah, we're just clearing the whole. So there. So you're seeing the whites of their eyes. Yeah. Here we go. All right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Very beautiful. Thank you.
All right, this question is, what is the best way to grow in connecting and understanding with higher energy frequencies and working with others?
I'll take a stab at it, and if I don't get the right, if I'm not answering the right question, then just let me know. Okay, okay, so let's go like basic constructs here of unity consciousness and separation consciousness, and then we'll kind of go into this a little bit more. So all unity consciousness means is that more aspects of ourselves, more aspects of our totality are working together in union, in oneness. That has a tendency to bring a very coherent, high frequency, you might say, or high vibration. That coherence, that interaction of all the different aspects of ourselves, the allowing of all the different aspects of ourselves, has a tendency to I'm going to use the word coherent in this case, has a tendency to make us more coherent. The more coherent we are, the more information we will have access to, right? So the other side of that, which is where, we all have both and, right? We all have parts of ourselves that are extremely coherent. We also have parts of ourselves that are in separation. Usually those parts of ourselves that are in separation are the parts that are uncomfortable, the parts that are the ouch, the parts that don't feel so great. And so there's a couple different ways of, if I'm answering the right question, of having our own frequency be clear, coherent, vibrant, higher, if you want to say it that way, higher frequency. And of course, resonance then takes over. So if we're in a higher frequency ourselves, we're naturally going to connect with a higher frequency within other beings around us, right? I mean, it's all you have to do is like wake up and have a crappy day, like when your day's like starts bad, the day's going to be bad, unless something pivots and shifts. That's just basic resonance. But we can do all this on purpose. So in those moments where we're, let's say, we're having a lower frequency day or a lower vibratory kind of day, we're heavier. What's really great is to be able to kind of go, okay, I'm just noticing that I'm heavier, right? And just be with that for a moment. Just, okay, we're allowing the parts of ourselves that are coherent, that are in a higher frequency, to just sit with, be with the parts of ourselves that are more in separation energy. And in this climate, it'll take about 5 minutes at the most. If you just don't tell a story and don't do all these other things, if you just kind of go, oh gosh, ouch, I feel that rub. It's like this hurts, or I don't like this. Okay, great. And then literally all these aspects of ourselves that are already coherent can come in and hold those parts of ourselves, sit with those parts of ourselves, and literally just no story, no nothing. It's just like, this feels like crap in this moment, and I'm just sitting here for a second, or I'm moving forward anyway. I'm not gonna do what I typically do. I'm just gonna move on from that, through that, right? You've automatically just dissipated or dismantled. You've automatically dismantled that separation energy. Your frequency just went up. Yeah, your frequency literally just went up. That's why in like David Hawkins, the map of consciousness, he'll say it's better to be, angry and frustrated and overwhelmed than it is to be in fear, worry, and concern. Yeah. It's like even that little bit of shift, you just amped up. So the cool thing is that the more we call in, to answer your question more precisely, the more we call in or tap into those aspects of ourselves that are already coherent, that already exist in a higher vibratory state, you are naturally and organically going to tap into a higher vibratory state of yourself and of others. You'll call that forward. Yeah. And when you call that forward, all kinds of things can happen that can't happen in a separation state. That's where miracles, magic starts taking place. And it's not rocket science, and it's not woo-woo either. It's literally just shifting out of that separation energy and calling forth that which unifies. Boop, frequency goes right up. Yeah. Yeah. Hope that's, yeah. Hope that was the right, yeah. Hope that answered the question. Yeah.
My own transformation has taken me to the brink financially, a hangover from times when I resist change. I know this is the end of a cycle and that I am being called to share my gifts and allow in abundance on all levels. Can you give any clue to the energetics and anything I need to work with to open this? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This is a good one. Good one for all of us, and quite frankly, for all of humanity. I mean, so let's see here. So first things first, you've already got so many of the layers of this. You know it's a pattern. You know it's not you, that it's simply an imprint. There's a little bit of a story left as far as how does it sound? Hold on a second. Being so dedicated to our evolution that, we will quote unquote spend whatever it takes in order to have the information, have the awareness, have the experiences, know ourselves, right? So there's a little bit of a story left there. And again, that story, we're bringing it up for awareness, not for judgment. Yeah. And so the other thing, it's interesting, we started this whole conversation with joy because I just keep looping back to that. It's the interconnectedness of all things, you might say. The dedication. In the past, the imprint was from a place of separation, and from a place of separation, we all feel like we need to get somewhere, and because we've lived in a reality where in order to quote unquote get somewhere, we have to spend to get there. Yep. I mean, we have lived in a transactional reality. And so we've even been conditioned to, when we are looking for ourselves, in some ways that can become a transaction, right? One way or another. And you've already moved past that. You've already moved past that place of having, in the past, finding yourself was entangled with transactions, and finding yourself was entangled with transactions and monetary transactions, because we've all been conditioned to believe that what we're looking for is somewhere outside of us, that the abundance is outside of us, the spiritual evolution is outside of us, all of that. You're already past that point, and so that's why you're noticing now that that is an old timeline, you might say, is an old story. And so again, you're shifting from the outer view to the inner view, right? The inner view of you. You're interviewing you now. Yeah, you're interviewing you now. And as you interview you now, you know quite a bit. You know that abundance, value, exists within you. You know that you never really felt all that comfortable in a transactional reality anyway, because you knew that a transactional reality was based more in separation energy than it was based on unity. Right? That doesn't mean that we don't spend money. That doesn't mean that we don't need money. That doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that in this moment, you've already crossed the threshold of that old separation energy. And now the more that you place your attention point internally for all things, where does the abundance already exist within you? Where does the totality of your being, where is your wholeness already there? Yep. It's almost like you're pivoting. And this is a big pivot for you. You're pivoting from looking out to looking in, and looking in for everything. Where does this exist within me already? Assuming that it is already there, assuming that it's always been there, right? It's like every single time I say that to you, it's like you anchor in this deeper reset. You're resetting your field into unity consciousness, you might say. Yeah. And we can make up all kinds of stories about the separation consciousness, but the fact is we've all played there. We all had to play there. It was all beneficial. It's just that you already crossed that threshold. That's why you know that that was an old pattern. So the new pattern is as easy as tapping into what has already always and is already there, always been there, already there. Yep, you're no longer looking for something. And you're definitely not responsible for creating some kind of transaction so that you find it. Yeah, you've got it. It's already there. There you go, right there, right there, right there. Feel that? You just like dropped right into it. Yeah. And the more you spend a little time right there, the more the outer landscape reorganizes around your unified perspective instead of your separated perspective. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Thank you. All right.
This question goes into that one that you just answered. My ASD son is 21 now. He is at college and on state benefits. I feel like we are trapped in the benefit system and unable to expand beyond it because of the fear of losing financial assistance if he becomes more capable. Have you any advice?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Let's just acknowledge that first, because again, on the one hand, we're in this separation energy of, you only get assistance if something is quote unquote broken. And then we start, and we're conditioned to rely on that assistance. because things have felt like they were in separation. And then as we move out of that, yeah, it's what you're telling me is, I mean, this is a double bind. There's no way around it. This is a double bind. So it's almost like we have to stay small in order to get something from the outside. Yeah. And we've been so conditioned to receive from the outside that that's typically where we put our, I'm going to use this word, but it sounds funny to me. That's typically where we put our trust, right? It's like, okay, the system provides this, and therefore we put our quote unquote trust in that system. But that system also binds us to, or has bound us to, staying small enough to fit within the system, right? So that's what I mean by a double bind. So we're going to unwind this double bind. And what I want to say is this takes trust, and it also takes an allowance of a both and until something new is obvious. Okay, so let me say it like this. So every time we move into fear, that if your son has more skill sets, that that the financial piece will be taken away. You see, you can feel it, right? It's like right there. It's like, it's like my kid can't show any more of himself than what he's currently showing, because if he does, we lose this. And if we lose this, then we believe that he doesn't get any more capable, right? This is okay. So before we do anything else, let's see this as a deeply entangled reality. And please hear me, when this reality was created, not by you, but this reality was created purposefully for this very reason. It's not just in him. This reality exists, in every person who is miserable in a job and can't leave it because that's their perceived security. Their perceived security is outside of themselves, right? Everybody who's in any kind of bound relationship, right, where they can't leave because they believe that their security is in that relationship. Typically what happens is things get more and more challenging. They get more and more uncomfortable until something shifts. We don't have to quite do it like that here. So okay, so first let's just, anywhere in this situation or anywhere in any of us where we have these double binds that are conscious to us, or even the ones that are unconscious to us, let's disentangle those lines of energy, those interfaces, especially all the ones that no longer serve us. The fullness of who we are, that's what we're here for. The fullness, the expansiveness of what we are in truth is what we are here for. There we go. So let's disentangle this. Okay, so from this place of disentanglement, every single time we go into fear, worry, concern, right, we're going to go back inside and we're going to feel the fullness of our being. Every single time we're fearful for our child, right, instead of staying in that fear cycle, which is a separation cycle, we're going to step right into adding energy to what he is in truth. the vastness of his being, the vastness of our own being. Every time we move into fear, we're going to step into within ourselves where we're vast, where we're total, where we're abundant, where we're in clear focus of what our intent is. And we might not even know what that is, but we can tap into it. We can choose it, right? And we might have to choose it a few times, many times, before we even really know what that is. Yeah. And then we start making this smooth transition to this, from this reality of separation and transaction, because what's happened here is your son, just about everybody on this planet, every child on this planet, in one way or another has become a transaction. And we all have the capacity in the unity that we are within to shift that. And every single time any one of us says, I don't choose transaction for my child, I don't choose that my child has to stay here in order to receive this, right? I don't choose that anymore. The moment that we, as little individual people in our little individual homes, go into that place, we start breaking down that structure, so that we're no longer playing in the structure of separation. Now we're playing in the structure of that which unifies, that which supports, that which expands. So we have to choose that expansion as often as we possibly can. And when we do, other people who are out there who are trying to choose that as well, whether you ever see them in your life or not, they energetically bind to this unity, right? And just watch. It's like one of the kids said, many of the kids, but one in particular a long time ago would say, the jobs that are going to be in the future that I will hold are jobs that don't even exist now. The ways in which I can be, you might say, supported or compensated or valued in the future don't even exist in this now moment. And in this case, a parent was asking about, how would her child survive? How would her child? So again, the moment that we shift our energy to that point, to that reference point, we're actually adding to that structure. And if every single one of us is adding to that structure shows up a lot quicker, right? So play with the system, stay in the system, allow the system to be what the system is in this moment. And let's not leave it just as I'm stuck in the system, right? I'm utilizing the system. You're using the system because we are also living in time. So you're utilizing that system long enough to watch something shift. And when it shifts, there's another system in place. And please understand, we are the ones creating that system. We're the ones creating that new system. We're the ones either feeding the old one or creating the new one. So play in the system, but let's not stop there. That's just what exists now. But every single time we zip that right back into what we're choosing. Yep, this is what I have to use right now. And what I really want for my son is for him to express the vastness of his being. What I really want is for all kinds of other resources and supports and things that I didn't even know existed. I want those all to come in so that I can wean myself off of the old system and place myself squarely in the new. Yep. Don't underestimate the fact that we are the creators of this system, right? So we have to refocus our energy. Yeah. Okay. Yay. I hope that's good. Hopeful. All right.
And with time, that was the last question.
Thanks, everybody. So let me just button things up here. As you can tell with, especially for those of you that show up here, on a fairly regular basis, you can feel the energy building, right? You can feel that things are shifting. You can feel that there's a deeper level of empowerment here, that has even been there, in past months. And again, just a, more specific reminder, we are co-creating that. You're not coming and just hearing that from me. Every single time that this energy builds, in whatever way it builds, we're collectively co-creating something that's beyond what we've been able to create before. And that's why I'm saying every person who asks a question and gets a little different perspective, or holds themselves in a little higher light than they've held themselves in before, all of that energy goes into a new way of being, right? Not just for our own little individual selves, but for the collective. So that's why, it's like, it really is, it becomes a pleasure, and it becomes a deep pleasure. There becomes deep gratitude in the capacity to literally make these little micro movements, these little micro shifts. And especially when we literally remind ourselves, take out the mental structure of what has been there and rewire that to say that, we are the creators of this new reality. We are the new world. Yeah. We're not waiting for it. We're creating it with every thought, every feeling, every experience. Yeah. So, yeah, that most likely will bring joy. So, yeah. All right. Let's love everybody. Thank you so much for showing up.